The broadcast is
My name is Dror from Gizmox, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about Gizmox and the development process, and we're going to touch a few more things as well. So, welcome. This is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the company, about the technology, then I'm going to show you a little bit of the development process, and we're going to talk about theming and styling a little bit, and we're going to talk about a little of the roadmap and what we can take away from this. So I'm going to start right here. Gizmox is a small company that was established a few years ago, and Visual WebGui is actually a platform for development of applications from the standard secure by design web browser or mobile accessibility up to the enterprise applications that run on on-premises servers or hosted servers or cloud environments. Visual WebGui has a large community of about 40,000 web developers around the world, and we are also a Microsoft partner and the Visual Studio Group. The most unique element of Visual WebGui in terms of runtime is actually a unique protocol, a web protocol on which we have a registered patent. And Visual WebGui is distributed in a dual license mode, LGPL or fully licensed. And we become more and more common around the world. Currently there are around 700,000 downloads for our SDK product, and about 5% of the developers that use Microsoft use Visual WebGui, which is very nice. Currently in production, we know of about 35,000 Visual WebGui applications just in production, and about twice as many in development. This is an example, partial list of some of our clients around the world divided into segments. As you can see, we have a lot of clients using applications for very big companies of different segments. If you look for high security levels, say in finance or security or government, you can find us there. If you look for mobiles, you can see here we have this is icon of the second largest HMO in Israel. We're providing access to all your personal or needed files through the mobile. Also, we have some of the banks have their applications deployed on mobile using Visual WebGui. We also have received awards from time to time, about once a year, such as the SD Times for 100 most influential companies in the world. We were ranked one of the most influential and innovative among the top 100, and we were among Adobe, HTML5, on Ruby on Rails. And you can see that we also had Channel Web give us one of the 20th coolest cloud application platform vendors for 2010. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the technology. Visual WebGui is ASP.NET based. What you see here on the left side, it represents what you have in standard client-server applications, which is application and framework on top of the operation system, which is responsible to all communication between the user and the application, the different parts of the mechanism. Visual WebGui created a framework that actually mimics the richness of the desktop applications, and even enriching it further. It is done by using a rich API of the desktop, which we mimic, and a rich UI enabled by a registered patent on a unique and light web protocol, which can transport small amounts of data. This is providing high responsiveness and low bandwidth, which is very important if you deploy to the web or cloud. The perfect balance between server work and client work is achieved by a complete decoupling of the two. This is a main part of Visual WebGui. There's a total separation between the work of the client and the server. All the code runs on the server and can be deployed and run on various presentation layers or devices, which means you can deploy the Silverlight, the HTML, mobile. This gives you an empty client, which makes it very light and very secure. This is perfect for data-centric applications. This is where we really shine. In fact, the more data-centric, the more Visual WebGui answers the application needs better. All the logic is done on the server, and small instructions to virtualize the data are sent to the client. Only the data drawn and only the UI changes are sent, because all Visual WebGui is Ajax based, so every control is Ajax. This gives you high performance and lightness, statefulness, and high security. Only one channel to the server exists, and this one should be easily secured. And that's it, you don't have to secure it more. I should mention that Visual WebGui had posted a high reward hacking challenge, and it ran for a few months, and the reward remained unclaimed, so Visual WebGui was proved unhackable. The Visual WebGui empty client architecture is designed to simplify, enhance, and protect the deployment of complex and data-centric and ultra-rich Ajax and Silverlight user interface for the enterprise level. All right, I'm going to talk about the development process. In 2000, Microsoft came out with two new entities, Windows Forms and Web Forms. And the developers of the world expected a correlation between the two, or at least some similarities or relation. And the truth is the two are not close enough, and in fact almost different as can be. What the developers of the world expected actually was Visual WebGui. So what do you get when you develop with Visual WebGui? You get a Visual Studio integrated environment. We support Visual Studio from 2005 to 2010, including Express editions. You get drag and drop. What you see is what you get Designer, just like desktop development. You get to develop in a single layer. You don't have to learn or teach desktop developers how to program with HTML or XSL or JavaScript or CSS. All those are in the box. You get a rich event-based application, which normally is very hard when you develop the web, and much easier on desktop. And of course, with Visual WebGui, you get web enhancements. You can have web controls that you don't have on desktop, such as we have a Google Map control, HTML box, ASP page box, ActiveX control, and other things as well. All right, I can see there's a question here, and I'm going to refer to the questions at the end. All right, so I'm going to go and show you a little demo of the development process. All right, so I'm just going to open my Visual Studio so we can see the development process. All right, so I'm going to create a new project. I've typed Visual WebGui application. All right, so you can see here a form, which is going to be our form. I'm going to set it as a start form. I'm going to start designing it. Open the designer. So some of you working with desktop applications, Visual Studio, should recognize these designer and these tools. And I'm going to drag a few controls here just to get you the feel of things. So I'm going to drag a split container. and I'm going to drag a property grid right here, and I'm going to dock the property grid inside everything, and I'm going to drag another split container right in this panel and set the orientation to be horizontal. Yes, well, this look should be familiar. And I'm going to drag a list view here, and I'm going to bind it to some data. So let's drag a list view, and I'm going to dock it to fill the panel as well. And I'm going to set the data source. Now, notice that the development process is the same as desktop. Very easy, point and click. And I'm going to connect to the database. You can have your data come from anywhere. Basically, I'm just going to take it from a data set taken from a Northwind database. I'm just going to connect right here. All right. So you're going to see tables in a second. And I'm going to select the customers table. I'm going to click Finish. Basically, this is the main part of the data binding. And this is it basically. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to select the list view as a selected object of the property grid so we can play with it at runtime. Here you see all our columns. I'm going to select the property grid. And I'm going to the form, and I'm going to bind to the load event handler. And here I'm going to fill the table. Yes, the adapter. Just customer table adapter dot fill, and I'm going to give it the Northwind dataset, and we said customers, right? This is it, and this is it basically. I'm just going to hit run and deploy to the browser. So you see the browser opening. And here we see the form loading. I'm just going to move this right here so we can see the list view. And here you have our list view control. Now what I'm going to do, because I don't want it to take too much time, not that it took too much time, is going to go to my list view, and I'm going to enable paging. So not all the data will be rendered at the same time. Just a second, I'm going to find this. Use internal paging, true. I'm just going to build this and go to my browser and refresh. Yes, so what I have here is my application. You see the paging right here. I can page. And basically, that was the development process for simple development. If you want things more complex, of course, it'll be a little more work, but you see how simple it is. And just to see what you can control in terms of properties of the list view, we see here the property grid, which is loaded with the list view data and shows you everything we have. And what I'm going to do now is go back to the designer and add a few more controls and make it a little bit interesting. So I can go to this panel right here, and I can double click it. When I double click it, of course, I get to this panel click event, and I can just do whatever I want here. I'm going to add another form, and I'm going to call it form 2. So let's say add Visual WebGui form 2. And in this form, I can build a regular form. Now just look, I'm going to drag a checkbox, and using copy and paste, I can just multiply a checkbox and create a standard form using this designer. And let's add a button. Notice you get I'm going to show you this button. It's a very rich button in terms of UI, and double click the button, and I'm going to say, for just For instance, this for this, I'm going to close it. This API mimics the API of the Windows Forms, which is very rich. And if you develop a desktop, you should recognize it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to create a form, form 2, and call it F2 equals new form 2. And I'm going to show it as a dialog. So I'm going to say show dialog, just like that. I'm going to build my application. Alright, I'm going to go to the browser and hit refresh as well. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to click this panel right here, and you can see my form. Using IE, I can determine whether my dialogues will be inline, just like this, which means that are drawn by HTML, or regular outline dialogues, which are in the Explorer dialog. So I can check whatever I want and close this with this button. You should know this. I open my dialog. My application is stateful, which is the big advantage of Visual WebGui over ASP.NET. You get all the states serialized and kept. I'm going to hit refresh right here. I can still have my dialog open because I haven't closed it. And actually I can have my checkbox information and even the selected item on my list view or the sorting of the column. You see I'm going to sort my column right here. And I can have this data saved. This is the basic development process of Visual WebGui. And of course we can control everything from font and colors and paradigms. See, I have my font dialog here of the list view because the property grid has the properties of the list view. I set it up and can just enlarge the font right here and make it bold. And I click OK, and you can see the font changes in the list view. Of course, I can change the back color as well. Say this horrible pink. We can make it nicer, I'm sure, like this. And I can change the fore color or everything, actually. Let's say I want to change. If I want to change the paging, I can do it on runtime. So just going to sort this. So I can set this to false. And now you can see all the table right here. And etc., etc., etc. Alright. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the theming. Right. So I've shown you a little bit about the desktop development, and I want to show you a little bit about the theming. Visual WebGui has a rich theming mechanism and skinning. Basically, you can create your own themes and create your own skins and skinnable controls that we have for you. Starting from the basic look and to the behavior, you can change the behavior or anything you want. So what we've got is an out-of-the-box themes, which are the 5 that you can see here. Currently the default theme is Microsoft Vista, but we support a Facebook theme, we have a Gmail theme, Microsoft Office 2010 theme, and Google Analytics. All the client resources are overridable. That means all the images. I'm just going to go back to the application that we've just been in. I'm going to show you the dialog right here. You can see this button has a rich UI. Has several states, mouse over, mouse click, and mouse down, and it has a disabled state. And this is done by a designer, which makes it really pretty. You can replace all the images. What you see here, about 10 images per state of the button. And of course you can replace it. So I'm just going to go to back to the studio and show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. Just going to drop this. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and add a theme. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a class. I think I have a theme item. I don't have to add a class. In inside Visual WebGui, you have a Visual WebGui theme. And you can, I'm just going to build this. You can create your theme via the designer. Just going to put this down. I'm going to open the designer of the theme. This is a Visual WebGui created theme designer. On the left here, you can see the tree of the controls by the control hierarchy. And per control, say I'm going to choose the control, you can see all the resources of that control, starting with images, style sheets, scripts. Let's go to see button, because we were talking about button. And you can see here the scripts related to that, the XSLT templates. You can see style sheets related to that, and you can see them as well. By opening, you can see the style sheets. And of course the images. Notice how many images there are here. I'm just going to show you in detail. About 5 for each state that we talked about. And I can override them as I wish. Now let's see, I can do this for each control. Say I'm going to choose for the checkbox, because we do have a checkbox, and this is much simpler. All I'm going to do now, I'm just going to override this. And now I have it in my application. And I can open it in any program that I want to see it. Here I have it in Paint, but actually I prefer using another one. I can use every program that I want. And basically this part of the development can be done by your graphic designer. Don't have to have a software developer for that. So I'm just going to find me a nice program right here, say Paint.net Switcher. And I'm going to open, I'm going to drag this image inside. Just a second, please. Alright, so I'm looking for, just a second, please. The checkbox. You see this checkbox right here? I'm going to drag it in here, and I'm going to change the coloring of the checkbox. I can change everything, but for now, let's say we're going to change the coloring. So just I'm going to choose this right here, this part, and I'm going to dye it yellow. So find over in the colors. Yes, choose this color. And just come here and dye this yellow, and I'm going to choose this arrow right here. Just increase this a little bit. I'm going to dye it red. So this can be my checkbox. And you can see a transparent background just around here. I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to hit save. And it is saved. Go back to the studio. And actually you can see the icon change right here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to register my theme. Visual WebGui integration into Visual Studio enables you to have a few tabs of our own here. You have the general tab. Here you can have all kinds of switches, such as obscuring, disabling, or debugger, which you want to debug your application, see the response and the requests. And you can have shortcut keys. I'm going to enable this just to show you. And I'm just going to registration. See, my form here is registered. I can register my form 2 as well. And I'm going to register my theme. So I'm just going to go here and add my theme 1 and register it. and just mark this, and this will be signing it as the theme that I use. So just going to go to my browser. I'm going to hit refresh. Yep. I have an exception here. This is just a moment. Oh, the connection string is wrong. Something. Oh, maybe it's gone faulty. Just a second. Just going back to my form. I'm gonna set my data source again. Alright, so this should be alright. Alright, what I'm gonna do is just go back to my properties. Right here, I'm gonna register the other form because I want to hang you right here, hang you up. I'm going to choose the other form as a start form and deploy again. Yes. Right here, form 2. And I can see this is the form that I opened with the dialog. And you can see the checkbox. I changed the appearance of the check state. And actually we can do this with everything. I can change the font. Say if I go to the theme, in the theme designer, I could choose the font of I just found out that my mic was out. I don't know how long it was out. So I'm just going to show you this. And I go back to my theme and I can change the font of the application. What I've done, and just in case you missed my vocal, just change the image of the checkbox in my theme. And I can create a theme with any changes that I want. Let's say I want to change the font of the whole application. Since every control in the control tree right here inherits from control, I can just go to properties window of the control and say I can change the font color. If I don't like black, I can just choose some other color, say blue. And I can change the back color of each control to be light green, just like that. And just going to hit save. And hit refresh right here. Alright. So it is refreshed. You can see right here that the font, the font color is changed for all the application, and I can change the font as well. Say I'm going to change it to something completely different. Just going to go with something like this. And just refresh right here. And you can see I can affect my whole application. If you have a theme for people who can't see very well, you want bigger fonts or bigger visibility, then you can do that quite easily. So this is for the theming mechanism. Alright, so I'm just going to go back to our presentation. We can continue from there. Oh, I wanted to show you the out-of-the-box themes that we have. Sorry. We have here, this is an application that one of our developers has built to mimic the Microsoft Outlook application and put it on the web. It took him about a month and a half. And this application mimics the same behavior. You can see here that I can open a mail and browse through the tree. I can have a new mail open, new mail message. So what I wanted to show you is the theming. So I'm just going to go to the view menu and the themes here that we have. And we have a Wave 2.0 themes that you can look at. We have Gmail theme. I'm just going to select this from here. And I can have the same application, the same session, and the same state. Everything is the same. Just the presentation is different. Using different themes, I can go and choose another one, say Facebook theme, and you have your Facebook theme. And this is basically very nice and easy. So this is what you can achieve just by theming. The main part of the great advantage of this in terms of work and development is actually you don't have to sit and do this yourself. You can finish your programming and then give this work to the graphic designer, which can design a theme for the whole application and centralize the design in one place. Alright, so I'm just going to go back to my presentation. Alright, so we talked about the out-of-the-box themes and we talked about developing themes. And just as we overrode the UI, you can override the XSLT of the JavaScript and change the behavior, the client behavior, as we wish. So I'm going to talk about just a little about the roadmap of Visual WebGui. Currently, the last release that we had a client based on XSLT and JavaScript and CSS, and we are currently upgrading our core SDK to draw with jQuery instead of XSLT, and it gives us the advantages of jQuery, which means a few things, one of which is a broader browsers variety. Currently we do support IE in all versions, and Firefox, Chrome, Opera, Safari, but jQuery opens more options and is supported better in Safari and Opera, which means it is supported better on mobile. And you can have the complete jQuery extension capabilities, which means controls for mobile, animation, and so on and so forth. The release, as you can see here, the first beta comes out at the end of this month, and the official release would be at the end of Q3, end of September. So I'm just going to talk about a little bit about the cloud move. The cloud move is actually a migration meant for legacy applications, legacy migration from Windows Forms or VB6 or even from Oracle Forms or COBOL. And we do have a few tools in development for automatic migration. The target, of course, is to the web or to the cloud or even to the mobile. Currently, we do have an assessment tool available for download on our site, which you can run on your project assemblies and see how compatible are you towards migration. Currently, for WinForms, the tool is available on the site. If you want to use an assessment tool for VB6 or Oracle Forms or COBOL, just contact us and we can talk about how it's done. All right, the transposition tool is the tool of the migration, the automatic migration. And in 2 months, at the end of this quarter, it'll be available in the first beta, and at the end of the year, the starting of Q4, the first release. And I'm going to tell you this is very exciting stuff. All right, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the mobile now. As you saw, we had a desktop Outlook application implemented for the web. It took one of our developers about a month. And Visual WebGui is ready to take the next step towards mobile-oriented development. So you see a web development, web implementation of the Microsoft Outlook. And from the same code base we developed for a different platform, you can have the same for mobile. I'm just going to browse to that. And let's see it on the web. Those of you who want to go to the web and see it, first I'm going to go to the webmail. So the address is www.visualwebgui.com/live/webmail/vhtml. I'm just going to go to the browser. And this is actually it. And we saw it a little bit. And you can browse to that and see if you have everything you want. All right. So just going to open this on mobile. All right. I'm just going to go to my presentation. I'm just going to take this URL right here. And just a second, please. All right. So I'm just going to browse in Chrome this URL. Oh, it's already open for me. So this URL you can browse from your mobile devices. If you have an iPhone, an iPad, or an Android, you can just browse right in. The address is, just going to back here, http://67.205.112.81 semicolon 8080/M. Yeah, you can see it right here. And the username to get in is Itzik, ITZIK, and the password is 125. I'm going to say it again. The username is ITZIK, password 125, and you can just browse it. It is online. And once you go in, you can see the application. I'm just going to show it in Chrome, but you can see it on the mobile devices. You can see your mails right here. This is like a mail, and basically it looks just like a mail application on the mobile device. Just going to go back to my mailbox. And mailboxes, go to send items, and you can see all my mails right here. And it does support everything that you have on the mobile, such as transitions and the gestures, such as pinching. You can swipe, you can pinch, you can see acceleration. And basically, this is a sneak peek of what's to come. So what is to come? What we've done here is we designed the UI of a few controls to look at more like the mobile, and define the mobile stream, which is basically the transitions, define the form factors, and we define the gestures. All of this is going to be incorporated in our core SDK. And this is it. Let's talk about the roadmap just a second. All right. Here you see just to show you the process. different parts of the form will be bound using a simple binding to the mobile flow of the transitions, and that way the behavior will be defined. All right, the expected release for mobile currently is going to be mobile enabled by the end of this month. The first beta will be out, and the official release by the end of Q3 this year. And a complete separate mobile framework will be available starting the end of Q2 this year, and by the end of this year it will be a release. And the difference between the two, just the first one, the mobile enabled one, is basically our core SDK, which will support mobile and will support transitions and gestures, not the form factors, no. This will be more suitable, I think, for tablet, if you want to, for production. The mobile framework will be specifically designated for mobile devices, and it will contain a full control subsettings for all the controls, and will have a designated mobile controls that are not very relevant on browsers on the web. Full support of the gestures and client awareness in terms of look and feel. All right, so this was basically the presentation, and you can see here you have a few links you can copy and go to. The first two of the webmail demo. First one shows you the HTML version. You can browse from any browser. The second one is the mobile one. You can browse from Chrome browsers or from your mobile devices, which is the same. The login is the same from both. This will be the username and the password. The assessment tool is right here. You can download it. You can just go to our site, www.visualwebgui.com, and you can see it right there on the home page. And this is it. Now, if you have any questions, we can refer to them right now. Just a second, please. Just please think for your organization what part of the Visual WebGui can suit you and what challenges you can have. And if you have any questions or challenges, you are welcome to raise the question. All right, so I'm going to just read a few questions right here. As to our presentation, first question I'm going to answer is, I want your presentation, how can I get it? Well, there is a recording of this webinar, and we're going to publish it after the webinar, and you can get it. It's going to be a media file, but I think we're going to publish the presentation as well, and all will be given via emails after the presentation, say starting tomorrow. So this is it for now. And I have a question here. This was the audio jack. All right. Can I simply develop desktop applications? Are they executable files? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. The desktop applications, of course, you can have executable files or libraries. And for the web, it's not executable, of course. You develop just like ASP.NET in terms of deployment. You deploy just like ASP.NET. You got your assemblies and your configuration files on the server, and you can browse to that server and get and see the application and work within it. Same goes for cloud. You deploy your package to the cloud, to the Azure cloud. And I should mention that the first application that was deployed to Microsoft Azure platform was a Visual WebGui application. This is the first application that was deployed to the cloud, and by a company called, just a second, I can't remember the name. Anyway, so this is, I hope I answered your question. All right, I can see, how can I distribute the application? That's what I meant. All right. If you want to ask questions about desktop development, this is not the place, I'm sorry. The distribution of desktop applications is, you can ask Microsoft. It's a totally different story. About web applications, the deployment is the same as ASP.NET. All right. So there's a question here, says, are there any end-to-end examples of a new user can cut their teeth in? Just a second. Are you talking about samples? If you're talking about samples, or if you want to learn about the development process, you can go to our website. We have what is called a companion kit. I'm just going to show you that. And just going to go to Visual WebGui. I'm just going to browse from here. visualwebgui.com. And if you go to our website, you can see the companion kit. The companion kit is the perfect tool to learn. It is also downloadable with the sources, and you can play with it as much as you like. So just going to go to the Developers tab right here. And I'm going to open the companion kit right here. See, you have a knowledge base, companion kit, and you have forums. Our community is very large, 40,000 developers is very, very much. And it's very active. You can get many responses either from us or for other community members. So this is a companion kit. Basically, this is a Visual WebGui application. You can see here the WGX, this is our extension. And you can browse and see documentation and examples of each control. So just click a button. And you can see here the, sorry, what is that? Alright, just for the picture. So you have here for the click once property. Once you click it, it stays down. And you have this. When you deploy a Visual WebGui application, the reason this is taking a little bit for the first time is that the first time the application loads, it loads a kernel of all client resources, about 250K. All the JavaScript, all the XSLs, all the jQuery in next version, all the CSS files, all the HTML. And after that, the responsiveness is high. Alright, so you can have different examples right here, button, and a drop-down menu from a button, just like that. And you can find all examples right here, or each control. You can search for control, so I want to search for a list view. Just going to hit, you see here, list view. List view, I'm just going to hit enter. And I can have here all my list view resources, which are 7. You see examples, you can see samples, you can see videos, articles, everything and everything can be found here. So this is for the examples. If you want to a little bit just try a thing out, you can download our product. On the professional version, I'm just going to talk a little bit about licensing here. We have two dual licensing mode. The professional version has a 30 days evaluation period. It supports standard and above editions of Visual Studio. We have one for 2005, 2008, and 2010. And we also support the Express edition of the studios, which is free. In the Express editions, you do have the designer, but there are a few things that you don't have, such as the private set of controls that we have. That includes ribbon bars, Google controls, and various other controls. But you can find all that out on our site. So you can download the professional version, just play with it, see how easy it is to develop just like desktop, deploy to the web. I think that's what Microsoft wanted to express in the beginning when they published web forms, but you really don't get that with web forms. Hope this answered the question. If not, you can publish another one. Okay, I have a question here. What are the developments that you made for reporting services in version 4? Okay, version 6.4. Currently, for those of you who don't know us, the current version is 6.4. The reporting services, we have a reporting control that wraps the Microsoft Report Viewer, and you can actually see that in our catalog application. It's also available on our site. Currently, it is functioning well. What I do know about the reporting service, the Report Viewer, is that some of the development practice of Microsoft Report Viewer has changed. So I think that you have to change the practice even if you use our wrapped control. Hope this answered your question. All right. So I have a question here. Will mobile clients support offline mode? As to that, I suppose when you mean offline mode, I suppose not. When you surf to the web via mobile, you have to be online. The state is saved on the web server, or in a database on the server or in the cloud, whatever. And as long as the session exists, you have your state. If you're not connected, you do not have the application state. One of the great things about Visual WebGui, because I arrived at state and I haven't talked about the statefulness. When you deploy to the web, of course, the big question is how stateful can you get and still remain efficient? So with Visual WebGui, since we have a unique protocol to send small amounts of data and serialize the state, whether it's in process or in SQL database or in ASP state, we serialize it to make it smaller and efficient. We also use mechanisms like property stored, so we don't have to render and send to the client every aspect of the state. We send only the non-default values. So say, for instance, if you have a button or a form, just like we saw with checkboxes and a button and list view and whatever. So you get something like 150 properties holding the state. But most of them, if they are default values of the properties, are not serialized and not sent to the client, which makes it very easy to keep the application stateful. But as to offline mode, I don't think so. I don't think it contradicts the basic principle of the session. All right. Just going to ask on the next one. Okay, that's about the companion kit. Except the companion kit, you can find on our website catalog applications, which is what was before the companion kit. It's a basic application showing most of our controls, and you can have all the sources for the companion kit and the catalog application. If you download our product, we have a product with sources, and you get all our sources. I would like to say now that Most of our SDK is public. You can see the sources for all our basic controls. You can see how we implemented the server behavior, how we implemented the client behavior. You can modify it and make it your own and customize everything that you want in these terms. All right. Okay. I have a question here. Okay, it has to do with the time zone, the GoToMeeting. All right. I'm not very familiar with this Citrix GoToMeeting tool. If it has any problems using it, I apologize if I could have done something else with the time zones. You're right. Users should see the date and time of in their zones. Are there any more questions? If not, I can talk to you a little bit about third party, because nobody asked that, and that's a very important part of the development, both for web and for desktop. And third party is an issue. It is an issue because how do you deal with third party control? And this is I'm going to answer that. Well, in terms of the development, there are two answers actually. One, the first one is if you want to wrap an ASP.NET, if you use an ASP.NET control, say Infragistics control or DevExpress or whatever, we do have an integrated wrapper. I can show you this right here just to indicate. Just gonna go to add my project, and you can see here ASP.NET control wrapper, and through this wizard I can actually wrap any HTML control that I want, say a web page from system web. You can see the namespace right here, and wrap it inside a Visual WebGui control, bind the client behavior to ours, and use that as a third-party control. But what you ought to think, I think, when you talk about third-party controls, is whether you actually need a third-party, because you should see the controls that we have in our SDK, which makes things much smoother to develop. And of course, it doesn't apply to your needs. You can wrap ASP.NET controls. I should also mention that Visual WebGui is very high on interoperability. You can use Visual WebGui fragments inside regular ASP.NET and vice versa. So you can have your application display both in terms of components. This is about the third party. I'm surprised actually nobody asked about this, but here we go. So we have another question here. Which plans do you have for supporting HTML5 and Silverlight? I'm going to start with Silverlight because that's in the past. We have supported Silverlight actually, and Silverlight was seen by us as an technology that we do not want to support anymore. You can still download our products from up to I think a year ago, and you can use that for Silverlight. The great thing about Visual WebGui, you can't do it all for Silverlight. The server code does everything else, and you can deploy to each presentation layer separately. For Silverlight specifically, we do not support that anymore. But you can download our previous product and use that, or you can develop your own client presentation layer and attach to that. I know it has been done. You can ask about that in our forums. I'm sure you're going to rich answer and examples and help if you need. About HTML5, that's in the future. I think by the end of this year it will be supported. But I don't want to give you any dates because I don't have that data in front of me. But it is in our roadmap, and it will be supported. But very good question. Since I see no other questions here, and I'm going to refer to a few more issues. The first one is scalability. If you deploy to a large number of users and concurrent users, how well can you perform? Well, Visual WebGui application can be perfectly serialized, as I said, with a state, and the state can be serialized into the database. And improvements have been made on it to make it very, very small, as I've mentioned before, with the property store. Basically what this means is that only there are two principles here that keep the state small and well. The first one is what I've talked about, the property store, which means that most of the properties are not rendered as they are unchanged. Every property value that is changed is rendered to the client, but most of it no. And the second one is that Visual WebGui differs from ASP.NET in terms of what the client does. The client in Visual WebGui is an empty client. Only the data is sent and only the UI is sent. So it's very secure and it's very, very light. The transportation is light and only the UI changes are sent. So out of all the UI, just the control that has changed as re-rendered. So that's in terms of scalability. And Visual WebGui has actually implemented a property store. Okay, we're talking about the property store. So this is very good. Now this is very important in terms of prices if you deploy to the cloud. Because on the cloud they do charge you on bandwidth and CPU usage and things like that. Okay. I have a question here saying, is there a performance improvements? And I'm not sure what you meant. Performance-wise, the performance is very good. The applications are very responsive. And if you want to improve on what you have, in terms of events, this is, I think, as good as you can get with the richness of the events in terms of going back and forth and small updates to the screen. In terms of drawing, if you're talking about client drawing, we are going to improve with jQuery, as I said on the presentation. And if you want to implement something faster, you can do that. You can extend our controls and you can extend our infrastructure in terms of client behavior. Everything is available on the open source version, and you can extend it from there, or you can create your own skin or theme and extend it from there, just like I've shown in Visual Studio. I should mention that we are already using some elements with jQuery, say a combo box. Let me just show you. Okay, I'm just going to show you right here. Just going back on my form, and I'm going to drag a combo box right here. Alright, I'm going to set a few items of the combo box. Just going to go to items and just say Joe and Ruth and Lydia. I'm going to add a few more just because I want to see just like that. And I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm just going to deploy this, and you can see elements using jQuery. No, I'm sorry. Just a second, please. Seem to have an issue with the deployment. Okay, just a second. Okay, so I'll open this here. Alright. Okay, so find this. Here we have it. I don't know why it gave me such trouble. Okay, so you can see a form here. You see the state was saved. Actually, after all this time, the state I've made with the theme and everything. And you can see here, you see the animation of the combo box. This is implemented using jQuery. And you can improve on that if you like. If you like to improve on that, you can. Just gonna answer a few more questions. Just gonna open this again so everyone can see the links. Alright. So, I'm just gonna put this here. When you ask, okay, so you can see a continuation of the question of performance of displaying the forms. The first time, if you're talking about the first rendering of dialogues or anything like that, first time it takes a little time, like any image that is downloaded in the browser. If you open a site for the first time, any images are downloaded for the first time, it takes a bit of time, a few seconds, but after that it takes it's really quick. So in terms of the display, if you are basing it on image, it will take time for the image to download, but that doesn't take a lot of time. If you want, you can make a thinner control by replacing the images or for something that weighs less. Alright, so I see a question here, I'm going to read it. Alright, can I develop a multi-layer application using WebGui, Visual WebGui? I mean having data access, business logic, and presentation layer separately. Of course, the development of Visual WebGui, I've said this before, Visual WebGui is completely decoupled. All the business logic and all the data handling and all the code is executed on the server. Nothing is executed on the client except drawing. And that means in terms of data, if I'm showing data like I showed in my list view, and I enable paging, so I have a list view with a few pages and say 10 records on each page. Only these 10 records are rendered to the client in a form of text, no tables, no nothing, just text. Everything else is just UI. So there's a complete separation between the business logic and data and the client side. Presentation layer aside, this is what makes Visual WebGui so special. Complete decoupling. One side server, the other one deploy to any presentation layer that you want. You can deploy to Silverlight, DHTML, you can deploy to browsers, different browsers, mobile devices, and if you're going to invent another one, you can deploy on that as well, with no relation to the base code, the code base, sorry. Code base stays the same, and it is secure as much as the server is secured. So this is the best you can get. I hope I answered your question. If you have another one, I'll be happy to answer it. I'm not sure what you asked about the Microsoft application blocks, but I know what you mean. All right, but I've answered it in the first question. You won't get any blocks on Visual WebGui, only on dialogues if you open new dialogues and your browser isn't configured to open them. But everything that is not secured doesn't go to the server. All right. So I have another question. We are actually running version 6.3. If we use version 6.4, all of the control and code that I made will be compatible in the new version. This is a very good question. Since we have a lot of customers that have used 6.3 version and want to use 6.4. 6.4 is out for more than a year now, and it actually is the first stable version of Visual WebGui, the first release. We had stable versions before, but the first release was at the end of December, I think, or the beginning of December, yes. December 1st, 2010 was the first release of 6.4, and a lot of people wanted to migrate from 6.3 to 6.4 because it was a revolutionary release in terms of both development and deployment. What I've shown you is on 6.4, and you can see where all the theme mechanism is on 6.4 and all the theming mechanisms, which is very important. We have a new other improvements. In terms of runtime, we've made a lot of improvements, and there is a migration path that you can use from 6.3 to 6.4. Just go to our forums, or you can see our knowledge base. There is an article on that, and you can also go to Visual WebGui Pedia. We have a Wikipedia site, which you can see. Just browse to it, and you see all the articles. If you need any help, just contact us via forums or send us requests, and we can help you with that. What I do know is there are a few things that you have to change from 6.3 to 6.4, which are mentioned there. I think there is 1 or 2 API changes and a few configuration changes as well. And if we're talking about migrating from version to version, I will say a word about .NET 4. We do support .NET 4, and with no difficulty, everything runs smoothly. Make sure if you do want to run .NET 4, you should check out the configuration files, modifications that you have to do, both in Visual WebGui and ASP.NET actually. This is not special for Visual WebGui. But .NET 2, 3.5, and 4 are fully supported. This is it in terms of support. Are there any more questions? All right, so I don't see any. I'm going to say a word about the cloud, because it is a big topic and a big issue and spoken of a lot. So, since the application is ASP.NET based, it can be deployed to the cloud just as easily. And in fact, I've told you I'm going to say this again, this is we don't forget this easily. The first application that was deployed to the Azure cloud, Microsoft Azure, was a Visual WebGui application by a company called Advanced Elementary. Yeah, I remember this. And they do energy assessments, modifications, I don't know exactly what. Visual WebGui has, in fact, we do have an assessment tool that I've talked about that shows you your readiness for migration to the web or cloud, and you can download that from our website. And on that tool, you can see your readiness for migration to the cloud specifically. It is online right now, and you can see how close, how ready is your application for migrating the cloud in terms of expenses, because cloud costs on storage and bandwidth and instances and CPU usage and SQL. We have done some assessment and computation on that, and basing it on your assemblies, we can tell you how close you are to migrating to cloud, and in a couple of months you can start doing it using our tools. So if you have any more questions, I'd love to answer them. Just think, how can Visual WebGui suit you? All right, I see there are no more questions. So we're going to finish the webinar here. Thank you very much for participating, and we hope to see you soon. We're going to have a few more webinars. Oh, I have another question here. What about Windows Phone 7? When we launch our mobile framework, which should be, just a second, just going to go here to the slide that says it, just a second, and we're going to see the mobile framework should be officially released by the end of the year. By then, I'm pretty sure it will support Windows Phone 7 and other devices. And but I'm not sure exactly what devices will be supported, which versions or what. But you can stay in touch with our releases and articles and see our release notes. If you want, you can register to the site and you can get emails on our development. All declarations and announcements will be going to your mail. All right, any more questions before we finish? We don't have to finish, actually. We have more time.